what motivated us to start exploring this module is that in the new grant, again, due to priorities of funding agencies and such, a lot of what we propose is to add information about the translational capabilities or possibilities for human health applications for fruit flies. So we're a database of Drosophila genomes and genetics, and started off with lots of genetics, and then, as I'm sure you know, we've got the genome and big effort on genome annotation as well as functional annotation, but always keeping up the genetics. But now we're having to at least put some of our focus into making these now more explicit links to human disease, health, conditions, etc. So we've been sort of doing it over the past year or so, kind of incrementally doing what we would think the easiest stuff first. So we've, for a while now, had information about orthologs. More recently, we've added a new section to our reports that lists the human ortholog, if one has been identified. And with that human ortholog listing, we also include links, if there are any, to the OMIM, which is Online Mendelian Inheritance in Man, gene pages, and then phenotypes, which is what they call their disease links. Okay. So that was our initial effort to add information. We have a curation group in Cambridge who does most of the genetic curation, and they've started a new effort where they're doing a sort of Go-style annotation, but using the human or using the disease ontology. Okay, so they're creating links between actually fly alleles and human diseases that the fly model has been used to explore. And then, and so that was not such a big leap because we already knew how to store Go data in Chado and how to create useful reports, and we sort of followed that model. And so we're actually, we've just started putting the data, the curators did a curation jamboree, did a whole bunch of papers, and we just very recently put the data into our production database, and hopefully we'll have reports, not our next release, which should be today, in fact, our next update. We're on about a 2-month update cycle every 2 months, or we do 5 or 6 releases a year. But the following one. And that'll add new sections to our reports. But then we also felt, our curators also wanted to have a way to allow people who might not be that familiar with the fly as the model system, and our nomenclature and the information that we curate about alleles and their phenotypes can be somewhat opaque to people who are not familiar with the fly as a system. So we wanted to create some access for people who might want to come in using things like a disease, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. There's a lot of work that's been done on models of using Drosophilus models for these certain aspects of these diseases. So we wanted to try to present that information in a way that would be useful for a scientist who's not into the nitty-gritty of Drosophila genetics. So this is our use case for this module. So Drosophila is being used to model aspects of a human disease or disorder. So we would either provide links to information about the condition. The key thing here is that our curators are Drosophila biologists. They're not, they certainly can understand the human diseases, but they're not experts. So we want to be able to bring in information from authoritative external sources as much as possible. And have some sort of summary that if somebody coming to one of the pages just can look and say, yes, this is the Alzheimer's disease that I was looking for. Okay. Needs to support searches via synonyms. People use various terminology for their diseases or syndromes, DBXREFs, and CV terms. And then we want links to the reagents, the fly alleles and transgenic constructs. People do things like stick human genes into flies, overexpress them, and so the flies fall down or whatever, and use that as a model of the disease. So, we want links to the reagents used in these experiments as well as sort of descriptions as to what the experiments were. And of course, FlyBase is very key on linking to literature, publications that have attributions, and also links to fly phenotypes, which, fly falling over may not be, the same thing as Parkinson's disease, but flying falling over indicates problems with, motility or whatever, and can give some information as to how a researcher might want to follow the experiments. So this is just a mock-up that our curators made as to what one of these reports might look like. So this is for a particular version of ALS, ALS 10. It's got links to the disease ontology, its parent disease, so this is a subtype of a disease, sort of a summary, and the human genes that are implicated, things like that. So these would be links to features, these would be properties, where we're just pulling in a summary from another site. And then things like the status of the Drosophila model. So somebody coming in could read about what sort of experiments they've done in the fly and why they think that this might be a reasonable model for this particular gene or this particular disease. Sorry. And then some of the things that we have already curated in FlyBase already have the information on because they're reported as transgenic constructs in flies, right? And so our curators already capture that information. We want to pull it all into one place to allow people to be able to identify them more easily. So transgenes, stocks, and classical alleles, things like that. And then references. So that's our use case. We had an initial chat on a GMOD call a few weeks ago. I guess that was before Christmas. Yeah. So whenever we're designing new stuff for Chado, we're trying to think about sort of keeping it as general as possible, as flexible as possible, and as modular as possible, right? And so other use cases, so we are looking at this as a way to capture information about models of human disease, but people express interest in crop pathology or animal diseases, and so therefore capturing the information directly about the disease or condition itself in the organism that they're interested in. And we'd of course be interested in hearing about how other possible use cases and how other people would like to use it. So this is sort of, a bunch of tables, the health, as we're calling it at the moment, being the essentially the center of this module with the normal sort of things, unique name, DBXREF ID, etc. Initially we had organism ID in this table, but instead, I think it'd be more useful to have a link to health organism, not requiring that the particular item in this table be linked to any particular organism itself. Links to synonyms, DBXrefs, libraries, how we at FlyBase have been storing a lot of the metadata about data sets. So when I heard Mara talking about the feature group, and then Scott mentioned a general group thing, that got me, interested, excited, because I've been sort of hoping for something like that, but we've already discussed some of the potential issues with either going too specific or too non-specific. So, anyways, good fodder for discussions there. CB terms and of course features. So this is all very Chado-esque. They're not, nothing out of the ordinary here. Yes.
Your unique name.
Yeah.
In plants, you've got a lot of, first of all, common names.
Yeah.
But more disturbing is the use of common names in one species to indicate infection by organism A, whereas in species B, it's a totally different organism.
Yeah.
So your unique name would have to incorporate the organism and some other bit. Leaf spot is a good one. There's leaf spots in everything.
Yeah. So first of all, the unique name for us is going to be some FlyBase identifier. So for genes we use FPGN. So unique name is not saying anything in particular except being an identifier, essentially a database identifier that's not.
It's almost a proxy for the primary key.
Yeah, exactly, but it serves as a useful foreign key link or
Not a foreign key link.
not a
because
foreign
that's
key, but the primary key or the unique.
Yeah.
XOR needs it, right?
The health
And we use XOR.
The health
But
synonym table there.
that is where these sort of things would come into play.
It does not have species.
Does not have species.
Because it would be like leaf spot, sensu, vigna, leaf spot, sensu, soybean. It's that sort of an issue. And wouldn't that table need the organism also in order to make that unique?
So this is exactly why I'm bringing this up here. So would you not want to use, could you use leaf spot, use an entry to leaf spot, let's see. I guess the question is, would you want to use the same entry and link to different organisms?
Right, because like you said, you've got leaf spot
That's
that appears.
handled in this design, because it goes organism, health, and then back out of health syndrome.
Yeah, so right, so it's just, you have to join across 5 or 6 tables to get there. But
Well, yeah, but then the
Leaf
thing
spot
is,
organism.
if you have a synonym, how do you identify that synonym with the correct organism is the problem that.
right.
that
Well, yeah,
he's
but
asking,
if I come to a database and I say, well, I'm interested in leaf spot, well, then the database is going to have to say, well, I've got leaf spot in this, and this. What did you mean? Right? Because that's I could see people doing that.
But if you're coming from, let's say, human,
Yeah.
and you say, I've got an infection with this organism, and let's just say that it actually also infects plants, which is not going to happen.
It does seem somewhat unlikely.
You would say, oh, well, I've got this phenotype of, I get brown spots on my arm.
Yeah.
And someone makes the assertion, well, that organism equals leaf spot.
Okay.
It's not so much with flies and humans, but if we start trying to
no,
link
no.
a bunch of different plants, it becomes a little stickier.
Literally.
Another with your health organism link, how do you handle, so again, coming at it from the crop ecology angle, how do you handle which is the organism that's being infected and which is doing the infecting?
Ooh, very nice.
Now that would be a health organism property.
There should really be a CV term, i.e. a term of relationship, I think, in that health organism.
For the health organism, I mean, the way we would do it now is add a health organism prop table and have the CV term as the value of the property, or even as a type of property, which is, maybe not ideal, but, again, if a type in the health, so in the health organism table,
Yeah,
a type,
if there were a type in there, that would handle
That
it
would-
perfectly.
so, yeah, this is, nothing is set in stone yet. We haven't even put the tables in our schema yet.
I'm
So,
just
no,
suggesting.
that's a very good, a good point. I mean, and so initially we had organism ID in health, okay? And that would help with some of this, but then, people brought up that they won't want to link between several organisms, right? So, yeah, I mean, it might be a good idea to have a type ID.
And what about the issue of vectors? Like in plants, you can have, thrips transmitting a virus. Both of those would need to be in there, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the
But-
type could be
Type could
pathogen,
be-
vector, vector.
Yeah.
So that we
Yeah.
can have that.
If-
Or actual
I like all those African diseases that come from eating game meat, etc. Jeez. Sort of a process question. What kind of a process is involved in putting a module into Chado?
I think I mean,
That's-
this is
we're-
something
this
we
is-
want to.
This is the process. Yeah.
This is part of the process, but yeah, no, this is the beginning of the process, and that was one thing I was hoping to get at too. So for natural diversity, there was a huge group effort, I think it was a group effort,
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
to-
no,
to
absolutely was.
get it-
From lots of different organizations. Yeah,
different people getting together to,
right. And then, I mean,
wrangle over the table and put them together and everything. And it
there's
took
lots
a long
of
time.
yeah, it did. It took over a year, and it took even longer than that, really. But I mean, there was lots of writing of use cases coming from different angles, to make sure that the schema that was developed would actually suit all of those use cases. So I mean, it's
And then there's the other model, which FlyBase has certainly used before, of just
just hand it
doing
to
it
hand it to
ourselves.
Dave, have him commit it, and see
Exactly,
what
and
happens.
that's kind of what happened with the interaction module. I don't know if anybody's actually
Yeah.
using it, because we haven't documented it. Although, did Dave send you something that hasn't gone up?
Well, it wouldn't be on the website. If the documentation were in the code, it wouldn't be on the website.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, well, anyways. And so for this, we're hoping for kind of a happy medium, where we have a discussion. We are planning to, do some implementation along these lines, and actually get some data into our database, test instances, which we are always happy to provide to people. But also want to hear about other use cases, because ours, we think, is going to be probably a minority of the way that people want to use this type of module. And the issues that you guys are bringing up about the organism, that's something that, definitely needs to be figured out, settled. So that's all good. Yes.
This is, in terms of your use case, this is about health, right, in terms of human health.
Yeah.
But really what you're saying is there's an equivalence between organisms that it's either by analogy or by,
So,
It's about homology.
so it's about a model
Yeah.
of,
Right.
Health,
And
yeah.
that's, yeah, so, but you can model any organism with some other organism. Right, I mean, you've already alluded to that, and so, part of me doesn't, I really don't like the term health.
yeah, well, I don't really like it either.
Pathology.
Well, we were thinking, we started with disease and then I didn't really like that all that much, but then pathology got raised and I think that might be reasonable.
But what you're
Right,
really
right.
saying is that it's not even about disease, right? It's about saying that there's functional, and this is going back to Mara's talk, is there's functional similarity between organisms. And sometimes we want to model that directly.
Yeah.
And we can model it in all sorts of different directions. We can say that X is Y, and, you know, our yardstick is trying to get at ways of quantifying that similarity at kind of at a genomic scale. But that's kind of what's going on here, is how do we model organism X with organism Y?
Well, that's what the experiment, yeah, I mean, that's what kind of we want to describe, right?
Well, and that's their use case.
Right.
Yeah.
Not
So the
our
question,
use
yeah, right, so I guess the question is, what's the, can you make it more general by saying this is a comparative? Or is it specifically, you know, is it about pathogens?
I don't think that would work for the crop pathology end of things, because some of us don't care about pathology. Some of us would literally,
Right, all you wanna care about is your leaf
want to
spots.
say that we have leaf spots and it is caused by this pathogen and acts on this organism, this plant. And this health module will let us do it, but simply talking about comparativeness won't.
Yeah, I mean, and so I brought this, you know, we initially had thought about putting it kind of, this sort of information in the phenotype module, because there's things in the genetics module like phenotype comparisons, et cetera, that could be theoretically used to model this sort of, you know, to store this sort of model information. But we really don't want to capture the detail about the human disease itself. We want to, you know, talk about the model. So phenotype didn't seem exactly right for that. We do want to be able to link observable fly phenotypes with the human disease, and, you know, I mean, you could do it with phenotype relationship, but then it, you know, I mean, that's possible, but not ideal, especially if you look at the phenotype table. And then supporting searches, we would need to have some potentially non-optimal linking table, non-really Chado-esque things like phenotype synonym and so on and so forth, stuff like that. So we decided to go with a separate.
I don't know very much about Chado. Why is that non-Chado-esque? I mean, you have links to, actually, I thought I saw phenotype synonym, or, I'm sorry.
That,
You saw, there was health phenotype links.
yes,
Right.
right. And those would be either linking from the condition to phenotypes, you know, describing the condition, and we get that from external sources. Or it could also link to our phenotype curation for the thing in Fly, okay, but it would be specified as a model of, you know, this phenotype models this disease.
That would be the type of models.
Yeah.
I think on the mail list, I'd suggest that people say, partly on the basis of semantic reasons, is a lot of plant agriculture breeding and selection is for things that could arguably be called diseases or abnormalities, dwarfism, whatever. But even in humans, you may not want to call dwarfism a genetic disease. It's a,
Right,
it's a
right.
trait.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another reason not to call it disease.
Or pathology.
Yeah,
It's so
or
judgmental.
pathology. Yeah, I mean, it's just a schema. Who really cares, right? But you know,
So I think
it can get touchy.
Norma, who had, I think, been sort of the initial developer of the phenotype module, said, yeah, we sort of ran out of steam on that. So
Yeah,
it was-
yeah.
So I wonder if you could sort of beef that up however you need, and then if FlyBase only wants to use a subset of that, or sort of be a light or specialized user of that, we proceed that way.
I mean, we considered that, but we're definitely favoring going for this sort of new module approach, not saying that phenotype doesn't need to be revisited, and it would be very good to revisit it. Part of that, the way that we have our phenotype data, which is really a core of FlyBase stored in the phenotype. So here's the phenotype table. It's all, set up with observable attribute, CV value. It's all these various CV term links, many of which we don't actually use in the phenotype table. And so it's kind of, in a way, wasted column. But we have so much data in the phenotype module right now that it would be very, very painful for us. I mean, both our curators and developers have to get out the duct tape essentially when anybody talks about changing the scripts and processes that we deal with phenotype now. 'Cause it's, but that said, the phenotype module definitely could use revisiting, revamping, potential redesign, and it may turn out that for some groups using phenotype rather than this health module might be the way that they would want to go. Yes.
I really am concerned that that potentially two use cases are going to end up conflating things that are going to be hard to disentangle. One is this organism models this organism, and that to me is that's one thing. And then there's these organisms interact, either as pathology, mutualism, whatever, right? And to me, those things have nothing to do with each other. And so to put those things in the same table because they're related to health is just kind of makes me kind of
Right.
Well,
I had the same thing. And I think what happened is that the FlyBase people presented this on the mailing list and in the phone call, and some plant people called and they're like, well, you know what? We could actually use these tables too, but it's different. So I have the same concerns. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it is different, but would there be conflation is the question.
Right. So the fact that you're using it one way and they're using the exact same tables another way.
But some of us might wanna use it both ways.
Yeah, well, that's where the potential conflation comes in. Would that be problematic?
But if you use it both ways, are you going to end up having an intellectual conflict in your data in terms of because you get the same structure and now you present that structure visually two different ways on the output because you're using it to represent two different things?
I mean, we already do that, and it can be a little. I mean, it can be a little problematic.
You
but
just
we
use the
get
right
around-
controlled vocabulary.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really CV.
Yeah.
You type it or add the appropriate properties to be able to disambiguate it.
The type fields, that's what they're designed for, is type fields that help you switch between data types. It's a much simpler way to control vocabulary. It's certainly not easy to search on.
I'm aware of the natural diversity module, but I don't have it memorized. But I believe that their notion of phenotypic data is more similar to what I use, which is phenotypic data that's environmentally sensitive. It is not strictly, you've got the allele and so you have this appearance or these symptoms or whatever. Those we call traits. And so we distinguish them that way so that we can actually, in particular for quantitative responses that we have statistics on and so forth, those things typically are phenotypes that have a third independent key which is the location and time that they were measured and so forth.
Yeah, we don't actually use the natural diversity module.
But
So-
what you're talking about is really, it has more to do with phenotype than natural diversity. Phenotype is not part of the natural diversity module, it just uses it. You know, there's a link there.
Okay, so what do I mean, in natural diversity, they have some value that is a response variable, I don't know what it's called, but,
The natural diversity module really has the ability to separate by experiment. So it makes it a lot easier to handle your replicated phenotype data using the natural diversity module.
okay.
And link those experiments to their actual,
But I don't think there's no place where it distinguishes between phenotype and trait, right?
no.
Yeah, I think so.
So the value for a particular taxon, a particular germplasm entity, in a particular experiment for a particular trait is a phenotype? Is that the way the nomenclature works?
It would be an experiment, has results in phenotypic data and is carried out on germplasm kind of.
And in this environment.
In this environment with these reagents, et cetera.
Yeah, but each
Using this
individual
protocol.
value as a result of that experiment, is that
Yes,
what it is?
each, yes. Each the value itself is in the phenotype,
Okay, so it's in this table?
yes.
Probably not in this table, probably in a linked table.
Well, the actual value goes into this table, this phenotype.
So it'd
The
be like
actual
the
value of the
observable attribute.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does actually go into this table.
Perhaps we should move on. Yes, we're already late for our coffee break. Maybe we should let Andy get through his slides, and then during the coffee break we can discuss this as well.
Yeah, well,
People
I'm essentially done.
I kind of figured.
Yeah. So the only other thing I want, which is sort of unrelated, but anybody other than us make their Chado database available? Doesn't matter if you have phenotype or not, but
Just as a dump.
Yeah, as a dump.
We don't, but we would if asked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently some DB used to. I don't know if they still do.
We haven't yet.
You haven't yet, but
But
you
we
plan
will,
to.
yeah.
Okay. So we encourage people, you know, if they're willing to.
Once we get to Postgres SQL.
Once you get into Postgres, yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Your database is very helpful. A lot of time you want to see how the data is modeled. Just go there.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people use FlyBase for that. Yeah.
yeah, so, and we're always curious about how other people are, you know, doing similar data or even completely unrelated data, but we've found it pretty hard to find anybody to actually give us database dumps.
Related, I noticed that currently the Chado schema itself is in SVN online.
Isn't that awful?
And I was just wondering about a GitHub or a GitSketch kind of thing.
So Rob tried to convert it to GitHub and ran into problems because there's some really big files in there, so GitHub puked on them. And then I tried.
Files in the history.
Yeah, exactly. They aren't actually in the. They aren't in the main
And so, like,
trunking.
I could have probably like done some
Excluded.
real black magic to try to exclude those big files, but I had other stuff to do, and I was like,
And then I tried, but I don't know enough about converting, so the history didn't go. So I said that.
Do you guys have any scripts
Yeah.
to help with history? Do you have any scripts or something?
Ron does.
Yeah, I can.
You could use GitHub.
Yeah, there are ways to do it.
Yeah.
To branch or
Okay, let me see if I get some time.
Alright.
It's just,
All right.
okay.
So let's go.